Alright, we're about to begin the lecture. This is the beginning of Unit 5 in my class. In Unit 5, we're talking about blood vessels, blood pressure, and the urinary system. And I know this seems like an unusual way to divide this up. Cardiovascular system is immense, so I decided to keep blood vessels and blood pressure out of our first unit, Unit 4, which was the heart and blood. Blood vessels, of course, are the tubes that carry blood throughout the body. Blood pressure is a really important concept that really ties in well with this. And this doesn't seem like it would belong, but it does, because the urinary system, the kidneys, largely regulate blood volume and regulate blood pressure for us, in addition to cleaning the blood. So this is very closely tied in with that system. If you recall, then the purpose of the cardiovascular system is to move blood. Well, that's all well and good, but we have to have a purpose, there. Just the sake of moving blood is not, it's like, well, why are we moving blood? Why can't it just stay in the same spot? What's the really important thing? What is it necessary? Well, what it really comes down to is this one key concept here. It's so important, I'm going to put a star next to it. Blood must circulate in the body in order to supply the 100 trillion cells in us with the oxygen and nutrients they need to live. And I'm going to add this other little bullet point. These cells are helpless. They are helpless. Now, why would I go so far as to say that? Without the help of the blood delivering oxygen and nutrients, and it also picks up their trash and wastes and stuff like that to these cells, to their front door, they're helpless to be able to acquire oxygen and nutrients on their own, because your cells are stuck. They can't move. This is the benefit and the disadvantage of being a multicellular organism. If I took a sample of pond scum and looked at it under the microscope, I could find paramecium, I could find amoeba, I could find a bunch of different single-celled organisms that can very easily acquire for themselves the oxygen and the nutrients they need by eating stuff around them and by absorbing the oxygen through their cell walls and cell membranes and things like that. But my cells can't, your cells can't, because they're not close enough in contact with air. And if it weren't for the blood delivering that oxygen to them, they wouldn't be able to get it. In addition, your cells are helpless to go acquire for themselves the food, the nutrients, the glucose, the proteins, the amino acids, the things that they need to be able to function. So they are helpless without blood delivering that stuff to their front door. So that's a huge deal. Those are big concepts. The cells are helpless, blood's necessary to circulate. In order for blood vessels to deliver oxygen and nutrients, their walls must be two things. One, thin. The walls of the things that are delivering must be very thin. And two, they must be porous, because some things are just too large to even fit through the thin walls and the cell membranes of the cells that line our blood vessels. Okay? The only vessels that fit this description are capillaries. Capillaries are microscopic little blood vessels. They are so small, in fact, that it would take 10 of them to fit the width of one human hair. You'd have to put 10 of them in a bundle, like a bundle of like spaghetti, uncooked spaghetti together, to be as wide as one human hair. They're super small, and their walls are really thin, and they're porous. They have a bunch of little holes in them called fenestrations that allow for stuff to seep out. Now, there's another key idea. Blood must reach capillaries. If blood does not reach the capillary, the blood has no purpose. Because unless it gets through the walls of the capillary, it will not supply any of the cells around it with what they need. So, with that said, not every blood vessel should be thin or porous. For example, our aorta has a lot of pressure on it. If your aorta were that thin and porous, it would explode and we wouldn't live for very long. So, large blood vessels are thick because of 3 layers. And this word you may have seen a version of before, the word tunic. Tunic is like a coat. And so the 3 layers actually have the word tunic in them. The first one is tunica intima. And intima is where we get our word intimate from. It means direct contact. Okay? This is the inner layer of blood vessels. This is what contacts blood. All right? The second layer is the tunica media. And that is the middle layer, which is what media means. Middle layer. And then the one on the outside, there's 2 different names for it, but I'm really only concerned with this one, tunica externa, because it's on the outside of the blood vessels. And it makes sense. External would be outside. Sometimes they use the word adventitia. I'm seeing less and less of that and more of this. So logically, something as thin-walled as a capillary would not have all of these 3 layers, but things like your arteries, arterioles, veins, and venules, larger things like that. And they also have a lot of muscle in them, so they can adjust their size based on need. But the capillaries only have the tunica intima. And that's it. They only have the tunica intima because, again, form follows function. Thin walls, they can allow nutrients to pass through. Thick walls can't. But we do need vessels that have thick walls so they can get and send the blood to the areas with the thin walls. What happens is this. This large vessel, the aorta, leaves the heart, and it splits off. It diverges, and it diverges, and it diverges, and diverges, and splits, and splits, and splits, until this tube that's about the size of a garden hose splits down into something, finally reaches its destination, which is capillaries, which are like 1/10 the width of a human hair. And then those capillaries get drained into venules, which converge and converge and converge until they get larger and larger and larger and larger and larger and end up finally in the either superior or inferior vena cava that lead back into the heart. So that's kind of blood vessel introduction in a nutshell. I hope you enjoyed, and have a great day.